The streets of New Vegas is riddled with crime. This city is diseased. I'm not the hero it wants. I'm not the hero it needs. But maybe I'm the hero it deserves. I'm the Whisper, and this is my night.
Welcome to the 36th installment of an Unearthly podcast. We're recording today on the 8th of December in 2013, focusing on Kevin Scott and Mark Wright's audiobook, Death's Deal. I am the Man in Black, and to my left, Ron Son...
I thought we were doing
I'm sorry. Night of the Whisper. Wow. Focusing on Kevin Scott and Mark Wright's audiobook, Night of the Whisper. I am the Man in Black, and to my left are Ronson McCulloch.
Always a pleasure.
Mad Matt.
Hello.
And Eli.
Howdy.
Must be a long table.
Hey, pass potatoes.
Potatoes?
Wow. You actually heard me make that correction, Bill? I thought I had my mic off.
Oh, no, I heard you.
Oh, I heard you clear as day, dude.
Wow.
Shit. Usually when I've made that mix-up, it was in my head and not on a script I was writing.
Well, yeah, it's just like, whoa, wait a minute, Death's Deal, huh? What?
Yes,
I haven't listened to that one yet.
Everybody listened to the wrong audiobook, including me. That would be something.
Actually, I have listened to Death Wish, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead.
I almost listened to it this week. I listened to this one midweek, and I was going to listen to the other one the night after, but I just kind of passed out that night.
Yeah, I've been working 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., and I'm able to listen to my music, so I ran out of music to listen to, and I just moved on to that.
So before we go on to our itinerary for today, we do have one loose end from our 50th anniversary celebration to wrap up. So, Eli, you were not able to give your final score, and I know you initially began as virulently hating Day of the Doctor. I think you warmed up toward it somewhat. So what did your final rating end up being?
My final rating is a 4 out of 5.
So that gives us 3 5s and a 4 of that group as our final ratings. So
I thought,
Lucas gave it a 3, dude.
I thought he gave it a 4. He didn't give it a 4?
I thought he upgraded to a 4, so it's 3, yeah, it's 3 5s, 2
and
4s.
I originally had given a 4.5 and changed that to a 5 when I watched it a second time.
Yeah, well, mind you, when I gave my rating, I'd already watched it like 3 times.
Yeah.
Maybe 4.
I had to take some time and let it wash over me.
Yeah, you had to let it sink
So
in.
after you watched it in theaters, did you change it to a 5.5 then?
Me?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, the theater effect did add something, like I said, but the 3D, I've seen some other reviewers that were absolutely thrilled with the 3D. I wasn't as thrilled with it, because I thought the areas where they could have been doing the 3D, it wasn't quite as...
I'll admit, there was less than I thought. Like, I remember hearing it was filmed in 3D, so I thought it was really going to be a deep atmosphere of 3D, where it really only seemed to be certain things seemed to be 3D to me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, the bar standard for 3D and how it should be used was Cameron's Avatar. because that movie was done very, very well in 3D. I'm not talking about the rest of the movie, mind you.
Supposedly that was a groundbreaking thing in 3D. I haven't seen it myself, and I
you got to see that. You got to get a 3D TV.
I'm not rating the movie as a whole. I was just rating the use of 3D in that movie, because that was, to me, 3D done right.
Like,
around the same time that movie came out, there was a semi-animated wolf movie called Beowulf that came out. And that was my example of 3D done wrong.
Sorry for trying to interrupt you there. But yeah, ever since Avatar came out, my friend X-Wing Girly, for anyone who knows of her, has been swearing up and down that 3D was the next step in communication technology, and that it was proof that we'd all have holograms and everything soon. And
3D's
like,
fad.
I'm not that much of a 3D person myself, so
for me, for 3D to qualify, it has to be done right. One of the things that Avatar did differently than most 3D things is the 3D went in instead of going out, so it conveyed a setting of depth.
Oh, see, now you're making me think of those, those things with all the pins that you put your hand on and leave the impression. That's the image you're giving me.
I'm a 90s kid. I know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, I had two of them.
I, but it's a little different from that. It's hard to explain unless you've seen it. So
I think I've seen things that were similar to that, but I generally, if I have the choice, I generally do not watch the 3D showing of things. So, all right. So
I listen. If something has been recorded innately in 3D, I'll consider going to see it. If something has been done 3D in post, I generally will not. The only thing that I did see that was a post-production 3D work within the last year was Pacific Rim.
And
oh my god,
Pacific Rim is an instance where, because the IMAX is only available in 3D, at least here, if the IMAX was showing when I went to see it instead of 2 weeks later, I would have seen it in 3D for the sake of the IMAX.
That was kind of my thing, is I wanted to see that on the biggest screen I could, so I went to go see it at the IMAX.
And so, Randy, this is kind of off topic and kind of late, but anybody who's seeing Ender's Game, it's really filmed for the IMAX, so if you have the option and you want to see it,
yeah, this is going to be really, really late for it, Bill, because I'm pretty sure most of the IMAXs have moved on by now.
Yeah, this is true, but
there might still be a couple.
It came to mind.
I kind of wished ours would have actually shown Day of the Doctor. That would have been kind of awesome.
Did anyone show that in IMAX? Because
no, not around here. Marcus is the film company that picked it up, and they don't own the local IMAX. AMC does.
But I mean, I've never heard of Day of the Doctor being done in IMAX.
It wasn't even shown on Marcus's Ultra screen. No, there wasn't an IMAX version of it, just a real 3D.
Okay.
But it wasn't even on Marcus's Ultra screen, which was kind of,
okay.
A big
so,
deal.
Randy.
Yeah.
Seeing it in the movie theater, surrounded by your peers and humanity, sitting in the dark on the big screen, did it enhance your experience?
Oh yeah, I quite enjoyed that experience.
That's what we talked about last week.
Yeah.
for a good portion of time.
Yeah. Well, Eli wasn't here.
I know.
So I'll just bring this up again really quick. It was like partially going to a convention. There were some extra scenes in front of it, which I thought were nice.
I was called Doctor.
And it was good because you were getting some of the same reactions that I'd gotten seeing it with a group in a small room, only, of course, across an entire theater.
Right.
The oohs, the ahs, the laughs in the right places, etc. I really hope the BBC, and I cannot say this enough times, the BBC will look at the intake that they got for this, the cash that the company that did the cinema versions took in on this, and start thinking theatrical version.
So you think it holds up well as a theatrical release, even like outside of being a TV, program, it would hold up well in a movie theater?
It was a better theatrical release than Ender's Game.
It's better than a lot of the stuff that I've seen in theaters these days, to be honest.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah.
Although a lot of that's not saying much for what's in theaters.
It's really not. I would give it points for being less shitty than something else.
There's a ton of stuff that'll come out every year that I don't go to theaters for. Even stuff I want to go see.
It did not fall apart in the theater.
Nope.
Because I know for a lot of people, it's a whole different ballgame when you take something and you put it in a movie theater. So I was curious how that held up.
Point Cinema wound up showing it in 2 different time slots in 3 different theaters. And nobody I saw coming out of that was displeased.
Awesome, okay. Anyway, now I know y'all talked about that last week, so we can move on.
All right, on to our new news. We have, unless somebody has it in the top of their head, I wrote down series, but the series, actually it was a projected date, so it's still not a definite. But Series 8 is anticipated to debut in August, which pretty much confirms that rumors of a split season are in fact because it's kind of hard to start in August and wrap up with time for a Christmas special.
We're pretty sure it's going to be around August because they haven't quite started filming it yet.
Yeah, this isn't
so you've
confirmed,
got it's
but
going to
this
start
is what
filming.
BBC is expecting.
It's going to start filming next month, and then you've got to figure, at least 2 months for post-production work, because they can, spread that out. They can film one, take it to post, and then film the next one, take it to post. So you figure 2 months to finish the last couple episodes.
I'm kind of expecting what we got last year, which is a production block for 6 episodes, a Christmas special production block, and then production for the last 6 episodes.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Moffat's going to try to do 2 different themes for the 2 different series or not. Like he did with Series 7, to the fact that we basically call it 7A and 7B, or...
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about the season breaks? Like, does it annoy you? Is it...
It actually does kind of bother me a bit.
I liked the 13-episode run that started in March, April, and continued through July.
Mm-hmm.
I know they had to break for Eurovision, but I was fine with that. But the way it's been doing now I have absolutely... as a viewings head for a convention, I usually show Doctor Who the last series to be ran in overnights between midnight and 6 a.m. And this year, I'm going to have nothing. I'm just going to have to spend a little extra money, buy some more classic episodes, and fill those blocks, I guess.
Apparently. And hey, the classic stuff actually gets a bigger audience a little bit here and there.
It's also I'm not a huge fan of the fact that once I finally learned about Doctor Who and got into it, they immediately started showing half-length seasons.
That's more to do with how the BBC is showing shows these days.
Yeah,
rather
that's a
than
really
Doctor
silly
Who.
way to do it.
Because if you notice, a lot of their other production shows, like Top Gear, only do about 6 to 8 episodes in a series.
So, do we know if this is a budgetal thing, or if it's just we have so many things showing at once, we need the space thing? Or
I think it's just the evolution of how TV is working. I know the major networks here are considering switching to 13-episode series blocks. They kind of already do the pre-Christmas and the post-Christmas, because they know that's where mid-series replacements coming in. And cable networks are already switching down to the 6 to 8 episode blocks.
Yeah, I kind of miss when I was younger, when a season would have 54 episodes of a show. But
that was cartoons, and that was different, because that's syndication.
I miss the days when there was just 23, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel.
Yeah, the 26 episode seasons. Yeah, because that's what it used to be. That used to be a standard season from the 60s through the mid-90s to early 2000s. As a series would have approximately 26 episodes, and they would need to have 3 of those at least before they could be syndicated.
I don't know. I guess I kind of see it as an annoyance, but a necessary evil with how high the production values have become for TV shows.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes me scratch my head when you see that Doctor Who's going into theaters now. They obviously have the production value, and they're making bank on it.
Well, I'm not sure if
Well,
it's
that's
the
just
BBC
for a special,
that's making
though.
bank.
And that's also, a lot of people mention Doctor Who making money, but there is sometimes people do forget Doctor Who is one of several things the BBC needs to fund, and the news that the BBC puts out does not make a lot of money. And Doctor Who and things of that nature are largely in part to make up for that and make sure that the news can be funded.
Yeah,
or at least I'm assuming that's still the case. I know it was if it's not now.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to look at it from a mercenary point of view. You know, you have to spend money to make money.
Sure.
And really, the BBC needs to understand the more they put into the show, the more they're going to get back from it.
But, yeah, I kind of wish that they would take some of the '80s American television mentality and apply it, the 30-minute toy commercial mentality and apply it to something like Doctor Who. Not 100% to the point that it destroys the show, but to the point of how you merchandise it.
And, the fact that we're talking about how much money this stuff's put in, we have to put into context.
Right.
The BBC does not directly make money off of any of this. Because everything that the BBC puts out is usually licensed through a third-party company.
Okay.
For instance, what was the company that actually did this promotion, Bill, for the 50th anniversary?
Fathom Events.
Fathom Events is the one that made all the money. They paid a certain amount, a license to the BBC to show this, but it's Fathom Events that took in the take. Likewise, with all the action figures and stuff, those companies pay a license to the BBC, make the figures, and then they make all the money. Big Finish licenses what they do annually, I think, from the BBC, and a lot of these licenses are annual. And then they make any profits out of the action figures or sonic screwdrivers, etc., that they, manufacture and distribute.
Still, everything you said is true, but I look at, for example, if anybody in the audience is Power Rangers fans, there was they almost didn't get
I was a Power Rangers fan.
That Power Rangers almost was not able to do a 10th anniversary special. They went to the company that makes their toys and said, "Listen, can you fund this special?" And they said, "As long as you give us something in the episode, we can make a toy out of." Now, Doctor Who does not have any difficulty making something they can make a toy out of. There's thousands of things per season they can make a toy out of if they do it that way.
The problem is they can't. It's against the BBC charter.
I don't know the first damn thing about that. So
the BBC charter, mind you, BBC is essentially the British equivalent of public television. It is funded by the Crown.
Was.
Still is, just not as much as it used to be.
So it's the NASA of America?
Kind of. It's basically, the BBC started out as being funded by the government. That is why the BBC does not have commercial breaks. That's right, they don't even have commercial breaks. That's one of the reasons I equate it to public television in that way. It's the fact that what pays for the BBC is England has a license tax for television.
No way.
Yep. I don't know if it's per household or if it's per set, but that money has been used to fund the BBC.
I'm fairly certain it's per household, because if you watch a TV show online without your household having a license, they can fine you and take it away.
Wow, that's a little hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah, it's you basically
but that
have
said,
to pay.
I don't think they have to. I don't think they have to pay like cable providers like Charter and Comcast. Do they have anything like that, or is that all?
They have Sky.
There is a certain cable thing, but it's separate from the television tax, I think, and optional.
So, like, the difference between basic cable and premium channels. Kind of.
Sort of.
The premium channels for a third company.
Yeah, this is a national television license for each household where television programs are watched. So yeah, if you have a television in your house and you're using it to watch broadcast, you pay a license, and the license helps pay for BBC. It helps pay for the BBC World News.
And what's interesting, apparently last month with Day of the Doctor and everything, there was some sort of, like, I only saw fringes of it, but I guess there was some nasty debate about, people saying, oh, British people get to watch BBC for free, and, being nasty about it because they had to pay to watch BBC America. And it's essentially...
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, and it's essentially the deal is the money that we might shell out to our cable provider is essentially what they pay to watch TV in the first place, and watching that in the first place includes, guess what, the national channel being the BBC.
Yeah, and at the moment, I think the license is a bit under debate, because the current license is £145.50 for a color license and £49 for monochrome.
Is that annual or monthly?
It's what I've been trying to find out.
Because if that's monthly, they actually pay more for cable than we do, I'd say.
That's $145.50 is approximately $300. I'm suspecting that's annual.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
If that's monthly, then holy smokes, what kind of money are they making over there? Right. And I doubt that.
Yeah,
that's about
have like
$32 a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's about $32 a month.
And I should also mention that the license, I'm pretty sure, is the reason. I mean, there's that, and there's also the fact that different companies hold different rights in America. But that's largely why, if you go to BBC.com, you can watch a lot of things on the iPlayer that are on television because you're already paying for the right to watch it online. So
Correct.
they're going to facilitate that as long as it's legal for them to. Versus BBC America, only certain people pay for, and therefore only people who actually have the channel get to watch it.
Yeah, that's an annual license fee. That's once a year. And the income from license fee is about £3.5 billion in 2012 through 13. Then thus the license fee makes the bulk of the BBC's income.
And by the way, while we're having discussion topics like this, if anybody in the audience has questions about these things, since there's only a certain amount of American podcasts about British television, if you have questions, feel free to ask them, and if we don't know the answer, we know how to figure it out.
We'll look it up.
We have our sources. We'll find your answers and put it on air. So please ask any questions you have. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, whatever.
Whatever you find this video.
Talk to us. This is an interactive experience.
Feel free to send us an email on it, and we'll answer it in the next podcast.
Email too, yeah.
We do these once a week, so hey. Okay. So I think that pretty much discusses the license. But yes, that means that they cannot, because of the same charter, if they violate that charter by directly marketing their stuff, they will not get that £3 billion.
Got you.
And trust me, when the BBC's income is only £5 billion...
Right. Hasbro would have to give them £5 billion in order for it to be worth it.
Correct.
Don't think Hasbro is willing to shell that much out.
Yep, that's why they don't do it that way. That's why they have to go indirectly through the marketing. They get some of their money through licensing the product.
That said, isn't some of Doctor Who's funding through BBC America, which does not quite have the same charter?
It does and it doesn't. BBC America is owned by BBC Worldwide, which is owned, in fact, by the BBC. But I believe that is a gray area.
That they probably don't want to cross just for the risk of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the full relationship is between BBC Worldwide if it considers itself. Mm-hmm. It is a wholly owned commercial subsidiary of the BBC.
I would assume at the very least all the money that they make on the other shores is pretty much going back to BBC Worldwide in order to afford making the next plethora of DVDs.
Right.
And so forth.
Let's see. The entire purpose of BBC Worldwide is to exploit brands, BBC brands, and sell BBC and other British programming abroad with the aim of supplanting the income received by the BBC through the license fee. And it's been making about 1.1 billion pounds for the BBC. So that's annually, yeah. And basically 2011 and 2012, that's actually, it made a profit of 125 million pounds on a turnover of 1.1 billion. So it really only is able to turn over 125 million pounds back to the BBC.
So most of its money is going into keeping the syndication alive and keeping these shows going to multiple countries.
Correct. And the further profits the BBC gets there is the profits off of these licenses. So they get a little money from Big Finish. They get a little money from the guys making the action figures for just basically for having the rights to do it.
Now that said, considering that Doctor Who's popularity has increased in other countries, I wonder, through BBC Worldwide, I wonder if that in any way is contributing to how much they make off of their other licenses, which is probably negotiations most of us will never see.
Well, I know the two biggest licenses the BBC has right now is Doctor Who and Top Gear. That's pretty much the big two.
Yeah.
There are others, but they're not quite so big. Sherlock would be if there was more of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if they owned exclusive rights to everything, instead of it being a public domain property that they make use of.
And Top Gear,
I'm thinking public domain. Is that, or did they buy rights to that?
To what?
To Sherlock Holmes.
They have to pay licenses to the estate of Arthur Conan Doyle because they have maintained their ownership of that in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people have had trouble for using Sherlock Holmes without permission.
Gotcha.
Including Star Trek: The Next Generation.
But I can imagine if Sherlock was an actual original BBC creation, they would probably make more use of it than they do, because anything that they try to do with it now, they still owe money on.
It's not just that. I mean, even Doctor Who has those kind of foibles. They use the Daleks. They have to pay X to the estate of Terry Nation. If they use the Cybermen, they have to pay a little money to the estate of Kit Pedler, etc. A good chunk of these classic monsters were created by somebody who has at least partial ownership. Mm-hmm. I think the most goes to the estate of Terry Nation because he negotiated and got exclusive rights to the Daleks.
I think his scripts came up. I mean, he came up with a lot of monsters early in the day as well, because he used to do more than just the Dalek scripts. I mean, granted, most of them aren't used anymore, but
well, he also came up with some monsters to be used with the Daleks.
This is true as well, yeah. Which might be why we don't see Ogrons anymore, or Robomen.
Yeah, we could argue that we've seen Robomen. They've just evolved.
True.
This is
But
actually something.
The point is, the name isn't used, and they're not in a form recognizable to be compared with Dalek Invasion of Earth by any form of copyright lawyer.
Also, the fact that the Robomen in Dalek Invasion of Earth looked damn stupid.
And
they looked like Cybermen, actually.
For those listening and waiting for us to get back to talking about TV, sorry, we'll get to that soon. Just hold on a little bit. We're getting there.
Boom, boom, boom.
Wow.
Did we tangent on a tangent?
Well, it's not so much a tangent. It's just probably not what everyone tuned in to expect us to talk about.
Okay, listeners, do not make a drinking game out of our tangents. You will die.
We'll probably die within the first 5 hours.
We are talking about Doctor Who, but it's probably not entertaining to every fan in what we're talking about.
For the sake of your liver, do not make this a drinking game.
I mean, you could make the argument that the nanite-controlled corpses from Asylum of the Daleks, as much as I have to
you definitely
repress
can.
my gag reflex while saying that, was basically technology that descended from the Robomen.
You definitely can say that. I'm saying from a copyright standpoint, they'd be two different things.
Yeah, well, the reason I think we don't see the Ogrons is because then everybody watched Planet of the Apes back in the 70s and went, those are better ape costumes. And the reason that we don't see the Robomen was the fact that the costumes themselves of the Robomen back then were really did not evolve well. Basically guys walking around with bizarre vices attached to their heads and collars. And talking like Lurch.
Which you see is the reason why the movie version's a little bit better.
Yeah, I actually have to watch the movie version at some point. I know Matt loaned them to me at one point, but I could not actually get stomach watching them.
Another thing that might poke a hole in my theory is the fact that Big Finish has used Robomen, and I don't know about Ogrons.
I think they've used Ogrons on occasion. I wouldn't mind seeing the Ogrons come back with an updated redesign.
Like the
It'd be kind of
Zygons.
cool. Like the Zygons did, yeah. I think it'd be kind of cool to see the brute force, but that's what they kind of invented the Jadoon for.
Since we've mentioned Zygons, there's never going to be a better chance to get back to actual talking about news. So our other piece of news is that this is a rumor. I'm not sure if it's substantiated by any quotes, but people are thinking that the boy that, or well, either way, the male figure that talked to Clara and told her that her doctor had called in the beginning of Day of the Doctor might be a new companion for Series 8.
It's possible. It's kind of grasping at straws at this point, unless we see some more substantiation on it.
I agree, which is why I wasn't going to say anything, but you brought it up.
I thought would bring it up and mention the fact that it's basically grasping at straws.
Yeah.
I believe he was supposed to be a co-worker, not a student, though it was really hard to tell.
It's especially with the fact that they specifically make these characters look as young as possible, despite, Clara's intended to be in her mid-20s.
Wait,
she could have aged. We don't really know if she aged between episodes or not.
But yet they could show her as actually attending high school, and we would.
And nobody would bat an eye on it. Especially since those of us who watch a lot of television are so used to watching people, significantly older than her playing high school students.
Mm-hmm. That's Buffy syndrome.
And anybody know how old Austin St. John was in 1993? I'm kind of curious.
Who was?
Austin St. John, Power Rangers.
I have no idea.
Which one was he?
He was the Red Ranger.
Ah, never mind. I was 5. Now I watch Power Rangers.
Because Actually, now that I say that, I'm going to look it up. Feel free to talk without me if you want.
I would add in...
Okay, he was actually only 19. That's not terrible.
Yeah.
No.
I would add in, however, that according to this picture that I'm seeing, that the guy who did approach Clara is wearing a actual suit, whereas the kids around them actually seem to have actual student outfits.
Mhm.
Yeah, the school uniform is big in England. I just couldn't tell because the suit also looked like it could have been a uniform.
The suit was brown with a pink undershirt and a reddish tie, whereas the kids in the background very obviously have black suits with white shirts and ties.
Okay, so yeah, probably just another teacher then.
There's also the fact that scene is intended to be an homage to Ian and Barbara,
which is, yeah. That's what I was actually thinking, was that he was supposed to be the Ian to her Barbara. But now they need a Susan. And please don't let it be one of the brats from last series.
Oh God!
Oh God!
Oh
no.
God! Please no! Please no! Please no! Please no!
I kind of get the impression if she's teaching that she's not babysitting as much anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully she dropped them in a lake.
Because I don't really care, because it might just be the fact that Stephen Moffat said, okay, fan response to the kids, not good, phase them out.
Or maybe she realized that their blackmail attempts wouldn't work no matter how hard they tried unless they went straight to Unit.
As far as we know, they did go to Unit and got flashy thinged.
This is true.
Which is also a possibility, yes.
You're referring to it as a flashy... So this is officially a Men in Black crossover now.
Oh, it's a freaking flash of light and people forget shit.
Yeah.
The second I saw it, it's like, oh my God, they've got flashy things.
I think Torchwood would have really appreciated having those back in the day.
Yes, they would have.
They wouldn't have had to drug quite as many people.
As long as Gwen made out with that alien chick, I'm fine. Whatever.
Although, you wonder if that is
the rape monster. Thanks for reminding me about that.
All red and tentacly, and yeah, thanks for reminding me.
I had to bring this back to the misogynistic point it was. I bring it to every time I talk.
I'm pretty sure we just both referred to completely different monsters now that you say that, but...
Well, I was referring to the Day of the Doctor line.
No, we were actually referring to Torchwood, Matt.
Yes, and again, I was referring to the Day of the Doctor line.
Oh, you're
myself.
talking about the Zygon.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we were talking about the Torchwood series. I think it was the second episode that had the rape monster.
First. No, second. You're right.
No, the first episode introduced the main character.
Yeah, second. My bad.
Yeah, the monster that, if it inhabited a male body instead of a female one, would have been seen as the most terrible monster ever. Instead, it was seen as haha funny sex monster because it was a girl doing the raping.
Double standards.
God bless them.
Sorry, I abruptly had to do Phil from Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law there.
Ah.
Ha double standards.
You get that thing I sent you?
Thing I sent you.
Does anybody else have any news or anything about upcoming things that they want to bring up?
Yeah, the Big Finish special deal for the 50th.
Oh, yes, that's right. Anybody have the URL to that on hand?
No, I could look it up when you gave it to us earlier.
Yeah, I can probably find it pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's for those of us that's going, what the heck are we talking about? Big Finish has a very special deal. I think until sometime next month.
Pasting it in the chat right now.
Okay, you found it. Good.
It's I think it's 9 free audiobooks. I think 3 of them are part 1s of 2-part or 3-part stories.
Like 4 of them are part 1s, because a few of them that aren't labeled as part 1s are part 1s.
Right.
Let me look at the list.
Stories and half part 1s then.
Let me look at the list again. So.
Okay. I know Sirens of Time. Sirens of Time was a part 1.
Cuddlesome, Mission of the Virians, Urgent Calls, and the Veiled Leopard are all complete. Sirens of Time is a part 1. Destination Nerve is a part 1. Dark Eyes is a part 1. 1963, The Assassination Games is a part 1.
And by the way, since you mentioned Dark Eyes, I know that that's a multiple box set series. So is it part one of a single story, or is
Yes,
it
it's
just
part
the
one
first
of a single story.
Okay.
It's a sampler, essentially.
Gotcha.
And a lot of these other ones are short stories that had actually come out for Doctor Who magazine.
So we're getting
If you had a subscription to Doctor Who magazine, you would get one of these for free.
right. I knew Sirens of Time was like that at the very least. Yeah.
No, Sirens of Time was the first mainline release.
I thought at least part of it was a Doctor Who magazine because they were trying to promote the beginning of the line.
They might have included part one as a magazine release, but I know the
I know
Veiled Leopard.
I know at least at one point it was free. Sirens.
Urgent Calls and the Veiled Leopard were both magazines, and I think Short Trips Rise and Fall, which I believe is also a complete because it's just a short trip.
The Veiled Leopard. Do you know what Doctor that's referring to?
It's not. It's Companions.
Like most of the Companions Chronicles are because the Doctor in them was unreachable.
Yes, but I believe this was actually multiple companions from different Doctors.
It's okay. It's Perry, Ace, and I don't recognize the other two. I think they're audio-only companions.
Yeah, let me look.
But yeah, there's no photo of the Doctor, so it might. I know they did the 5 companions, which was just 5 companions. This is, I think, a smaller scale version of that.
Yeah, I remember looking all these up on the data core when I was there. It's it's Perry and Eminem from
Hex
and Ace and Hex. So it's basically 5 and 7th Doctors. They're just referenced in dialogue.
Okay. So this means we have essentially this sampler is 4 through 8. Okay, so basically the Doctors they have now, different quantities of each. Unless I'm imagining that Short Trips is probably not a first, second, or third Doctor one.
I don't know. It might have a little of each. Short Trips is basically exactly what's on the tin. It means that it is short stories.
But this is one specific story, so I'm assuming it's probably not. I'm trying to bring up information on it.
So with this sale, are there any gems in there that you guys would recommend?
Sirens of Time I'm a big fan of, but you do only get the first part of the story, so you would have to get the rest of it either
it is
or
one
some
of
other
the
way.
earliest Big Finish audio. It's the first one that they ever did. It was to celebrate them getting it. It was all the Doctors that they had licensed together.
And it was actually before some of the Doctors had officially signed on, I think, because like Sylvester McCoy didn't actually start doing regular Big Finish stories, I think, until a year or two later.
Okay, Short Trips Rise and Fall is a short story read by William Russell. It features the first Doctor and Ian Chesterton.
So the only Doctors that Big Finish is capable of making stories about that are not included in this offer are the second and third.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty good pack. I mean, it's not... several of the stories are not complete, but it's worth picking up, especially if you're new to Big Finish.
Yeah, I think Pertwee had back when Big Finish was pre-producing at that point, Pertwee, I think, had been interested, or at least partially involved, but he died before anything could be finalized.
I imagine that would be something he would do if...
Oh, God, he would have, because he was so...
Wait, what year did he die?
95. 96. He died shortly before or after the 96 movie.
So he might have been involved. He might have been involved in the negotiations. I know he was definitely doing. He was definitely doing BBV stuff at that time. So that was.
Yes, he was. But I think that was the point that Big Finish was forming. Yeah. I don't know if they had gotten the license, but I believe they had already signed people on the contingency that they got the license. So I think he had been one of the ones that was signed on contingency.
I would have loved more Third Doctor.
Yeah, we all would have.
There are some, I think, companion chronicles. I don't know how often, but I think at least once a year, the 3 deceased Doctors do get a companion chronicles about them.
Mm-hmm. I know that Katie Manning still does stuff. That's Joe Grant. and oh god, what's her face? Catherine John, I think is her name. Liz Shaw.
Yes. Or
And,
Carolyn John, I think.
Carolyn John. Okay, yeah, Liz Shaw. And of course we we just lost Elizabeth Sladen a couple years ago.
Right.
Just
And
before she was about to join too.
They used to do companion chronicles about the Fourth Doctor before Tom signed the contract or signed on. I don't know if it's a contract, but signed on.
Yeah, and so
with
now there's the Fourth Doctor series, and unfortunately, Sarah Jane passed away before she could do any recording for that. But there were Sarah Jane Adventures that had been written by BBC Audio, so Elizabeth Sladen had been working with them.
So it's not like we're getting the bottom of the barrel stuff in this free thing. Like there's some actual quality things to find in here.
Yes, but it's a sampler.
Yeah.
It's a free sampler essentially.
It's to get them interested in more things, but we're not.
Oh yeah. It's like drug, man. The first one's always free,
and it's gonna be the best taste you've ever had. You'll ever hear.
For the record, this Sirens of Time Part 1, it's essentially, at this point, it's essentially if you had a 5th Doctor, a 6th Doctor, and a 7th Doctor, each in succession, Part 2 is when the 3 Doctors actually meet each other. So this is really the build-up to really whet your appetite for the part that is not free.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of what this sampler is.
I must admit that this listing is a little 5th Doctor heavy, because you've got Cuddleson, Virions, Sirens of Time, and then Companions of the 5th Doctor in short trips.
And you've got
short trips in the Veiled Leopard, which by the way is essentially it's a story that's the plot of the Pink Panther done with Doctor Who companions.
Then you've got one 6th Doctor story besides Sirens, one 7th Doctor story, and then 4th and 8th each get one story with no crossovers.
Mm-hmm. So it's I would have thought there would have been a little more 8th Doctor, especially with,
it's almost as though Peter Davison is secretly behind the whole 50th anniversary celebration.
But no, that couldn't be true, is it?
Trying to lead them on into their own 5-ish Doctor special and all that. Nah, never.
You could almost imagine him being the mastermind behind this all. He just happens to say,
wouldn't it be
RTD
nice?
Crossover for children in need. And when they needed to do find an actor for the Doctor's daughter, use my daughter.
She is, in fact, the Doctor's daughter.
Meet my daughter, Georgia. Matchmaker. And now I have all the power.
Who's the real chess master now? Jeez.
See, the master has actually taken over Peter Davidson and is slowly...
Actually, I just
where's
realized
this story?
I just realized this piece of news segues perfectly into the next thing on our agenda, which was to talk about our narrator for this adventure and his history with Doctor Who.
It's Nick Briggs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the second, well, essentially the second time. I'm counting multiple runs with one character as being one time. This is the second time that Nick Briggs has played the Doctor.
Nick Briggs goes back to working with Doctor Who stuff as early as the early 80s, I think.
Yep. Audio visuals started in 1984 with their pilot.
And then when that went down, Nick Briggs jumped ship to Bill Baggs Video.
He played the Doctor, which is sometimes referred to as the Nth Doctor, because he really doesn't have a number for obvious reasons. That he played. This was while the show was still going on. The closest similarity you could probably think of now is the what was the correct title of that? The Star Trek, The New Voyages.
Yes, The New Voyages.
That would be the closest thing you find.
Yeah, that's what you guys might not know. The New Voyages is a YouTube series that is continuing the original series of Star Trek with, of course, new actors.
What?
Yes, and they actually had to do really well. They have reconstructed sets and everything.
Yes.
Oh my god.
They have production value, and several members of the original series have actually guest starred in episodes, including George Takei and Walter Koenig.
What?
Somebody's squealing like a little fanboy over there.
Like,
So,
immediately. I love Star Trek.
So Nick Briggs starred as the audiovisuals doctor for 4 seasons before going over to BBV and becoming a writer. Eventually, due to the BBC getting kind of ticked off that BBV kept trying to rip off Doctor Who with The Stranger almost being the 6th Doctor, with The Adventures of the Professor and Ace, they were called Adventures in Space and Time, but at the time they were the Professor and Ace, and they were Doctor Who until the BBC squashed it and made them change it. So in order to get the BBC off their back, they brought back the audiovisuals Doctor with a couple of epilogue stories starring Nick Briggs, who finally they had a star who had never technically played the Doctor.
And then they finally, then he, of course, jumped ship off of Bill Baggs when Bill Baggs started to do more eclectic stuff. And I believe he was involved in the actual founding of Big Finish.
I believe so, because he wrote and directed the first Big Finish Doctor Who audio drama, Sirens of Time, as we were talking about, and he's still an executive producer to this day.
He wasn't the creator, but he was big involved. And I think Nick Briggs has always voiced the Daleks for Big Finish, a role which he has continued to do for the BBC in the new series since 2005.
The only real times when he doesn't is like the old series, Big Finish will sometimes have episodes with multiple Dalek voices, and obviously in that situation, Nick is not the perfect person. He's talented with voices, but he's not multiple people. So they do in those situations, he's not the voice.
Yeah, I think he does provide the ringtone modulator for them to Dalek-ize people. But other than that, he does the base Dalek voices, and if there's specialty Daleks, he'll give them the modulator and show them how to use it. I really want one of those. Mostly to record my voicemail messages.
Leave a message at the beep.
You will be exterminated. Yeah.
Another connection between Nick Briggs and the Doctor. I'm going to paste this in the chat again just in case Matt didn't already have it. There was a comic called Party Animals in which someone claiming to be the Doctor from the future who looks suspiciously like Nick Briggs came and had a conversation with the 7th Doctor.
Yeah, now we know if they ever decide to do that again, he's going to look like older Tom Baker.
And this, I'm trying to see what this comic was from. It was in Doctor Who magazine. It was a comic strip during that. And it has been remarked that several people involved in audiovisuals have gone on to do other Doctor Who related things. So it's possible that this was intended, if not confirmed, to be the audiovisuals Doctor. There's really no reason
neither
to
confirm nor deny it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So Nick Briggs is a neither confirmed nor denied Doctor.
There is of course no proof in this comic that this is the Doctor. So it's theorized that he might just be somebody who the Doctor sent back to pretend he was him or something else of that nature. So there's that, but it's essentially a Nick Briggs cameo to be the Doctor meeting the Doctor.
And that really kind of does bring us to the episode, which was told by Nick Briggs.
Yes, and that which is why I brought up. So Nick Briggs is once again voicing the Doctor. In this case, he's narrating and doing the voices of Rose Tyler, the Doctor, and Jack Harkness.
So I believe now we have plot summary.
I was gonna say talk about the Ninth Doctor just briefly first.
Okay.
I don't think he needs much introduction. I don't think there are many people listening who don't know who he is.
The Ninth Doctor, a.k.a. the one-season Doctor.
Yes.
Who really concreted it, I feel.
Concrete. What do you mean by that, Eli?
As in, he made the Doctor of the New Generation, for me personally. Like, he set the tone of it perfectly.
He sold it, yes. I could argue that if David Tennant had started that year, if he hadn't been contractually obligated to Casanova, that I still think Tennant could have sold it as well. But he did manage to set the tone.
Yes.
When I go back and I think, like, what defines the Doctor of, like, the new Doctor Who series, it was Eccleston's brief stint.
It's very interesting because even though it was largely because of things like coincidences preventing it, like as Randy mentioned, the contract to Casanova, it really worked out well because thanks to having both Eccleston and Tennant in there, they were able to work in a transition, introduce everybody to regeneration early, and largely create a flowing timeline from season 1 to season 2 with the differences that it ended up having between the character and his growth and such. So the Ninth Doctor picks up essentially, now we know right after Day of the Doctor, although you could always, I wouldn't say that this is canon in any way, but you could try to squeeze the Scream of the Shalka Doctor in between there. I don't know if I'd recommend that though.
No, you really can't now that the number of Doctors has been kind of.
Yeah, that's true. There is a concrete number, so the Doctor would have to forget about an incarnation, as would the Master probably have to forget having met him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Scream of the Shalka has pretty much.
Like I said, I wouldn't really recommend trying that.
Yeah, which is really bad because I really was fond of the Shalka Doctor, to be honest. But still,
the Ninth Doctor picks up right after the Time War, and he is essentially, to use one term, he's shell shocked from the war. He's trying to get over the war and struggling with it. He has all of the grief that John Hurt had in the beginning of the episode, in the beginning of Day of the Doctor, but with none of the closure that he had at the end.
Because of course he had to forget.
Right. So the entire season goes through him dealing with himself, dealing with the war, coming down from being this high-strung,
dealing with what he thought he did. Yeah.
Right. And from all the loss that he believed he experienced and that he did experience, because obviously some of it was not on Gallifrey.
Yep.
And this is throughout the season, Rose and later Jack help him to come to terms with his loss and with himself and grow back into being the Doctor as we know him, at which point he then regenerated into David Tennant due to Daleks and Time Cores and such.
And Bad Wolf.
Yeah, you really look at him, how he is in Dalek, versus how he is at the end of Empty Child, the Doctor Dances.
Oh, so much. There's a lot of character development if you watch it real closely.
Which is why I largely consider it to be a season-wide arc rather than individual stories, but of course it is presented as episodic stories, which is a lot easier.
Well, there is.
That
is an actual theme that goes through the new series of Doctor Who, is that there is always an overarching arc. But you're not going to consider it one production code.
Yeah. This one feels more in a row than most seasons do, whereas there's a connection to the season overarching story, whereas this one is really a strong progression from A to B to C.
So but even so, that's actually a earmark of good writing.
True.
If you take a look at like Deep Space Nine, and you watch and you watch the characters from Deep Space Nine as the series progresses, you will see them evolve. And that is where DS9 did go right, whereas Voyager failed, is the fact that their characters failed to evolve, even though the stories that they were written said that they should have.
Or a good example also, though to me a lesser degree, is Angel. Watch that from beginning to end,
Yeah.
and the characters
Yes.
have changed
Actually,
drastically.
that's not a bad example, because the fact that a lot of Russell T Davies' writing was based on his fondness for Joss Whedon's works, in particular
Yeah.
Buffy and Angel.
Oh, really? I did not know that, but I can see
Oh
it.
yeah, he was a huge Joss Whedon fan.
Yeah, there are tons of comparisons drawn. Well, actually, forget comparisons drawn between Torchwood and Angel. He had the character who played Spike cameo as a character with the last name Hart.
I can't even tell you how much when he popped on that screen, I just lost my shit.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, of course, that in Doctor Who itself, Anthony Stewart Head, a.k.a. Rupert Giles, played a villain in the second series.
He played a villain who was a teacher.
Which I still think was a waste, because I would have loved to see him as the Master.
Oh, he would have been a beautiful master.
Oh my god, why didn't that happen?
I'm just thinking of his portrayal in that episode, and imagining he would be the new Roger Delgado.
Oh, he would. He would have been absolutely fantastic.
Like no doctor since Delgado has been.
Or like
no
master
master since Delgado.
He could have pulled a...
James Marsters... Sorry. Go ahead, Randy.
James Marsters could not do the Master, or if he did, it would come out very Eric Roberts.
That's what I was going to get at. Well, not Eric Roberts, but I had another example in mind.
But, yeah, no, Anthony Stewart Head could have pulled the thinking Master, the Moriarty. Or, you know, my other vote was for Anthony Stewart Head to actually be an incarnation of the Doctor. That would have been fun, too.
Yeah.
The time and space adventures of Rupert Giles.
God. I would watch the shit out of that.
I know, right? I would buy that on Blu-ray.
You can see this. I mean, he can even use the same mannerisms. Whenever he's slightly annoyed, he starts cleaning his glasses.
Do you think Wes would be his companion?
No, you would have to get a youngish blonde.
We have a youngish blonde. That's the story.
Rose Tyler is Buffy.
Buffy would kick Rose's ass, though.
Yes,
Let's admit facts here, yeah.
Even Torchwood Rose versus Season 1 Buffy, it still wouldn't be a contest.
So a youngish American blonde, yes.
Her personality would just eat Rose. She just eats the scenery.
The levels of wrong that's getting involved in this. So you'd have Anthony Stewart Head as the Doctor, Sarah Michelle Gellar as the companion.
Why don't we just give this series over to Joss Whedon? That's just what Here's the keys.
And Captain Jack as now being played by anybody?
Angel.
No, not Angel.
Who are you giving it to?
Come on.
Who do you have in
Come
mind?
on, Captain Hammer himself.
I think he just flailed onto the floor and fell over.
Speaking of Hammer, I recently saw I forget what specifically it was, but it was a riff or video of some sort about Thor, and they used the "What the Hammer is" line during that. And when I finally watched Thor: The Dark World, I don't know if I'll be able to keep a straight face.
Okay, guys, I'm okay and I'm back. I got off the floor.
You gotta go into the corner for a few minutes.
You just had a fan squee moment, didn't you?
I literally fell over. Like, I didn't even mean to, but I threw my arms in the air and I lost balance.
So we have Anthony Stewart Head as the Doctor, Rose Tyler as played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Nathan Fillion as Captain Jack. That would be a show I'd watch.
Can they use Serenity as the TARDIS?
Well,
I think it would be a little obvious, wouldn't
I was going to say replace Madame Vastra with Jewel State.
Okay, I'm gonna get writing this fan fiction immediately.
No. You see, the problem there is now you're going to Moffat, and Moffat's not as big of a Whedon fan as RTD is.
Well, it was either that. I'm like, it was either that or put her in the place of Jackie Tyler.
Wah.
Anyway.
And we've digressed quite a bit. So
yeah, that was an interesting tangent. So yes, the Ninth Doctor. Apparently, the regeneration of the Ninth Doctor is basically after John Hurt. I almost did it myself. After John Hurt, and very bitter survivor of the war, hating himself and pretty bitter towards the universe, mellows out in time, of course, to die and change into David Tennant, which kind of set the theme for David Tennant's more manic depressive, the man who regrets, essentially.
Yes. I think the Doctor really summed up that transition well. From the 9th to the 10th. The 10th as the one who regrets, and the 11th as the one that forgets.
Mm-hmm.
The 9th, though, you can just see him, that it really goes to show Eccleston's acting, because he really
he's
carries...
an excellent actor. I mean, he could express so much in just a turn of a phrase that isn't even his.
You can just look at him and know that he's carrying the weight of a whole tragic event on his shoulders every moment.
Again, I have to go back to Dalek.
Yes.
And there is just so much in there where you actually hear the Dalek say something and you just watch Eccleston's eyes change.
Yeah.
He's nothing else. The eyes themselves change.
Like,
suddenly he's expressing an entirely new range of emotions.
Every time I watch that scene, that I know what you deserve, that scene, a chill goes down my spine just watching Eccleston.
Every time.
And listening to the way his voice changes.
Mm-hmm.
That was the episode where my opinion of him was just like, holy shit. This is like...
Yeah.
I thought this was just like a chew popcorn and watch sort of sci-fi show. But then I was watching it and I heard that specific line. And
Well,
like,
yeah, the first series of Doctor Who is interesting because you have Rose, which is not a very good episode.
No.
It's a Russell T Davies written one, which again, I'm not fond of his abilities as a writer and dialogue writer. I like his ability to produce and do overarching stuff because, the Bad Wolf stuff was pretty damn good. But you have Rose, which isn't good, and the special effects could have been better, especially on the plastic bins.
Yeah, that was...
I've seen someone do a play-by-play looking at the direction of that episode, and I've got to say, looking at it from that light, I can give the directing of that episode a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm.
I still say, it could have been written in different ways as a pilot, because really, especially the last 10 minutes of that, or the last 5, or however long, when Rose finally decides to travel with the Doctor, almost turned me off. Just the way Rose acted in that scene, I was not sure I wanted to watch a show with her.
And then you have The End of the World, which is obviously where the budget from Rose went. Because the special effects on that one is great. Go ahead.
Which is a tribute to the Web Planet.
And it's also a bit of a tongue-in-cheek to Douglas Adams. It's kind of in his style.
Mm-hmm.
The planet at the end. I mean, the space station at the end of the world. But they didn't eat the meal of the day.
That's because they couldn't afford the Doctor
I wasn't even talking to that. I was just talking to how it was written.
Yeah.
It was very Adamsy in its dialogue.
Breath from my lungs could have been an Adams line.
Yeah, there was a few things in there that could have been Adamsy. I kind of noticed it had that kind of Adamsy bizarreness feel to it, and I kind of liked that.
The face of Bo.
There's more on that one later. And then you get to, what was it, Young Quiet Dead? Was that the next one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
Which was, in my mind, a throwback to Classic Who. Bill and I have been talking about this episode on and off a little bit.
I think you mentioned you like it better than you did on original watching now, or at least you didn't mind it as much.
I'm trying to remember. Honestly, I think that our original discussion, you got the impression that I liked it, that I disliked it more than I did, because I really like it's. If anything, it's more a neutral episode that it wouldn't scare me away from the show, but it wouldn't draw me in and make me really want to see more either.
Which is funny because that was my first episode I saw all the way through.
Yeah, for me, it was the episode that was basically reminded me that this was classic Doctor Who. Still, this was the continuation of classic Who, because it felt like a classic Who episode, and still had new Who moments.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I get a refresher of this episode you're talking of?
That was the one where he met Charles Dickens.
Oh, yeah.
It was also included as a tribute to where they were filming, Cardiff.
Cardiff, yeah.
It was also the introduction of the actress that would one day come to play Gwen Cooper, although I doubt they had any inkling of that at the time.
No. And still, though, it was like I said, it kind of felt more like a classic episode in a few ways. And it was just kind of like, yeah, I remember more like what this was about. And I enjoyed that. And then, of course, we got Russell T Davies doing Farting Aliens.
Yes, we did.
And I remember watching these going, really, Russell? Really? No? And then, of course, Russell had already planned to bring the Slovene back for Boomtown. And then, of course, they were never seen in New Who again. They were spun off to the children's spin-off, Sarah Jane Adventure.
Oh, never mind.
You were about to bring that up?
No, I was just thinking, was Boomtown another two-parter?
No, it was a one-parter right before the last two episodes. It was important.
You know what's throwing me off, because they apprehend her so quickly. I feel like it's a second adventure, because most of Boomtown is spent with the whole cat and mouse game where she's trying to escape or get them to feel guilty and such.
And never happens. Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's actually a story in 3 parts, but. Because then there's her end ditch plan to.
Right.
But anyway, no. So we get to the Farting Aliens, and then we get to Dalek, and my faith in New Who had been shaken after the two-parter.
And for the record, when I started watching the show, I was pretty much told to watch up until Dalek before making a decision whether I wanted to keep watching or not.
Dalek is a game changer.
Yes, it is.
And it tells you so much about what the Ninth Doctor is and where he's coming from.
If Dalek hadn't been in that run, or if it had been pushed later, etc., I don't think New Who would have been a success.
Here's the question: If Dalek was about a new creation instead of about Daleks, do you think it would still be as powerful?
If it was this new creation that had destroyed the Time Lords?
Yes.
If it probably, because what really nailed that
draft or anything.
What really nailed it was the fact that it was a classic enemy coming back.
No, it wasn't for me. What really nailed it was the way Eccleston played it.
Yeah.
It was the drama, the tension, and just how much you could see in there. Bringing the Daleks back was the icing on the cake.
And Rose kind of sums it up at the end of the episode in that it really shows a side of the Doctor that New Who fans had never seen before that episode. Or several sides of the Doctor we had never seen before that episode.
Yeah, it showed that this was just going to be more than just fun little adventures. Because if the first series of Doctor Who had been nothing but fun little adventures with very little extra substance to them, yeah, that would have killed the series after the first one.
I fall into Matt's camp on this subject, but yeah, Dalek is definitely one of those episodes where I went, this is not just another show on sci-fi, or
because again, you have to also look at it from my opinion too, that with seeing Dalek for the first time, it's the first time I was introduced to a Dalek.
Right.
And wait, there's a past this thing. Holy shit!
Bringing something. So in that case, bringing something back wasn't what sold you on it if it was the first time you had ever seen it.
But the fact that they mentioned that there's a past, it's like, what, is there really a past? And you look into it, and it's like, holy crap, there is! Look at all of this!
Exactly.
Oh,
Well, it very nearly wasn't the Daleks because of the estate of Terry Nation.
because even if they went with, say, the Toglophane draft, in the context of that episode, they still would have been talking about how much of a past it had.
Oh, and by the way, you can blame Warner Brothers for the estate of Terry Nation being complete and total assholes about it.
Because, what was the name of that movie? Looney Tunes Unleashed, was it?
Or Back in Action, or
Back in
something like
Action.
that.
Action.
Yeah, used a Dalek in one of its couple of its scenes, and
I
did not
guess
do
they didn't
any.
get away with it as a parody.
No,
I
they
guess
couldn't
it wasn't enough of a parody to get away with.
No, they.
No, it
Warner
was
Brothers-
actual Daleks.
Yes, it was an actual Dalek. It was.
Yeah. No, it was
an
definitely a Dalek. I'm just saying if they made it enough of a parody, it would fall under fair use. But they did not make it.
But no,
enough of a
they
parody.
were actually movie monsters, and they somehow managed to get their hands on 2 Daleks with voice and everything, yelling "exterminate."
Yeah, it was bad. They were using, I think, old footage, or old audio footage with it.
Mm-hmm. Old audio, yes.
Wow, I saw that movie when I was a child.
Oh,
I have
was it?
no
They
memory of
actually
this.
used existing Doctor
Yeah.
Who video footage. I thought
It
they
was-
recorded and new for that.
I don't know.
The Daleks are filmed new. The audio was recycled because it was still the classic Dalek voice yelling "exterminate."
Yeah.
It was very clearly the
there were
classic
some other lines
Dalek's
too I
voice.
recognized from like old '60s Daleks,
Mm-hmm.
like from like the Daleks or Invasion of Earth, something like that.
Probably at the very least, Invasion of Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that, and it was not. There was no credit to Terry Nation in there for the Daleks. There was no credit to the BBC. There was absolutely Warner Brothers just thought that, hey, we'll just use these creatures and
They happen to be at the costume museum or something, and we can get this audio clip from the internet.
Sorry to interrupt the topic. According to this, I'm going to post the link so you can see what I'm seeing. According to this link that I just came across on Facebook, apparently today, I'm thinking this was from today, Stephen Moffat announced that this will not, even though it's airing in August or supposed to, it will not be a split season.
Oh,
What?
Ooh.
So they're saying there will be
Yes.
13 episodes in a row starting in August. Expected.
okay. Well, I'm still annoyed that it's August because that's still not going to give me anything to show,
Right.
considering my convention's in August.
Mm-hmm. But still, at least it's all one row this time.
Yeah,
Okay,
we'll
so
get
this
the full.
was posted today, so
Is it still
So-
a 13 episode season?
Full
So
13
let's
episodes will be
take a
aired
look at this.
consecutively. The news will be welcomed by
Let's see.
fans.
There's 5 weeks in August, 4 in September, 9. So it could get done by October or November and only give us a month until the 2014 Christmas special.
Yeah.
Because there's been a Christmas special every year since 2005. I doubt they're going to be changing that this year.
Mm-hmm.
even
next
when
year.
it was a split season, they still had a Christmas special both years. So
Right. So I suspect the reason they might be pushing it off to August is that big annoying break they have to make for Eurovision. And the reason they don't want to film it early is probably because of the 2014 Olympics.
yeah, there's also the fact that Moffat is really concerned about leaks and spoilers and other things. So he might also
He's
be.
less concerned about leaks and spoilers for the actual series than he is for the specialty episodes.
But like the plot points that he wants to be a surprise, he's very.
those he doesn't like. Yeah.
Yeah, he's very jealous of those plot points. So I think he's trying to push them back to film as late as possible for the sake of keeping those secrets.
Well, you see, the pain in the ass for those is, of course, that puts all the pressure on the post team.
Right.
So the special effects won't come off as smooth if they're gonna push it till the end. They push the envelope till the end for filming.
Well, I'm kind of curious when the post team found out about Tom Baker. Like, they were like, okay, we just got some new footage. We have 48 hours to edit
post-
this, and
there
holy
wasn't-
shit, is that Tom Baker?
I don't think they really had to worry about that because there weren't many special effects shots needed for that.
There wasn't special effects, but there's always post.
I mean, they could have added that at the end, just flat out like the shawarma scene from Avengers. Had him come out like 2 weeks in November, do the filming, and then just quickly spliced it into the end. Even knowing that he was going to be in there as early as like May. Just pushing it off till then because there's an actual absolute minimum special effect cleanup. It's just maybe clean the shot and do a little bit of
well, that's why I
touch-ups.
said 48 hours, because I don't know how long they normally spend, but I imagine it takes at least a week to do the average episodes post.
Yeah, depending on it all depends on the amount of special effects shots in an episode, though. Because the amount of CGI that has to be added to an episode, the longer it's going to take production-wise.
Right. Like, this wouldn't have CGI, but there'd still probably be effects made to the light if needed. Regular cutting, checking.
Yeah, and that's just touch-ups. That's essentially the equivalent of Photoshop work. What they use is a lot more drastic, but it's You could literally do that. That's the same stuff that has to be done for any
They would probably
series.
be doing that in Adobe Final Cut.
Even above that, probably.
Anywho.
Yeah. So does that wrap us up to go on to our summary, as it were?
I think so. I think we got off topic there again. So, yeah, you did have to interrupt us because that is kind of breaking news. So
yeah, I saw that on Facebook just randomly appear on my news feed, and I was like, I'm not going to let that slide.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks.
Hopefully.
Series 8 will be 13 consecutive episodes. So
That's
probably
really good.
August through October or November. And that probably means it's going to be one overarching story arc. We can probably guess what that is. But Stephen Moffat said he has actually mentioned that probably will not happen right away. So it may be an overarching plot that'll go on for multiple series.
That's right. I don't think. Wait, I forget how much of this we discussed on air and how much of it was off. But it's essentially looking like the search for Gallifrey is going to be Moffat's version of the randomizer, where it's used as a way to keep the Doctor moving forward and doing things.
No, that's not really what he said. It just means that he has a goal now.
Well, what he said was the Doctor needs to do something. What he's doing is looking for Gallifrey.
Mm-hmm.
Which, at least that's how I understood it to mean. It's going to be what drives the Doctor to keep going to random new places with the hope of...
No, he was doing that already.
He's already doing that already, Billy. There was no real focus lately.
But he was more meandering than actually...
Yeah, this one actually might come out to be kind of a cosmic scavenger. I think it's more like the key to time than it is the randomizer.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually said that if that's what he's going to plan for, I will applaud Moffat with that. Because I Key to Time, the overarching arc of the Key to Time, I think was always one of my favorite stories, even though some of the actual individual episodes weren't good. I like the fact they connect together, and I refuse to watch them separately or out of order. Yeah, because I think you wanted to do one for like one of the episodes that was on YouTube, and I'm like, I can't rate that without looking at the others.
I think one of our discussion topics was possibly just going through every episode that was on Netflix. Oh no, when we were doing one per Doctor, we were going to say, well, pick one from Netflix, and you were like, well, that's part of Key to Time.
Yeah, it was one of the ones that brought up. I think it was the Pirate Planet because
I think there were 2 or 3. Oh yeah, that's right because God damn it!
It was Adam's birthday that month. Yeah, no, I couldn't do it.
So we ended up doing City of Death instead.
Mm-hmm. I would love to do that, but I would like to do an overall on it. I'd love to do Rebus Operation, Pirate Planet, Stones of Blood, Android of Terra, Power of Krull, Armageddon Factor.
Anywho, we're divulging away again.
Yep.
And then I'd love to follow that up by doing the Black Guardian trilogy. Seriously.
Slap your hand.
Put a
Just
rubber band
saying.
around your wrist and pop it.
Just saying.
Yeah, and everything
Okay,
keeps
so-
just saying we're losing another
Plot
2 minutes.
summary.
So who hasn't done a plot summary?
Point to Eli.
I don't have all of this committed to memory enough to do a plot summary. I'm not even going to lie to you.
So then it looks like it's among the core three here. Let's see. Was it Matt or Bill that did it last week?
Bill did most of it, I did
started
like a
last
quarter
time,
of
and
it.
Matt finished it because he had a better grasp of the linearity of events.
Oh, right. I guess that means it's up to me then. So, all right. Let's see. Plot summary. Should I do this gravelly voice?
Yes.
If it's not going to screw up your throat.
Or
I may need to pause
Prolong
to get a
things.
glass of water at the end of this, but we'll see. I have a cup here. I'll just go into the bathroom and
oh,
grab
you
some
need a
water.
glass of water.
So let's see, plot summary. Right. Let's see, plot summary. Rose Tyler is working at a restaurant in a
New
town
world.
called New Vegas. While working there, she talks to her boss, this ugly, big, bad wolf man, who's actually the crime boss of the area. And he's sweet-talking the mayor. While that's happening, somebody breaks into the restaurant and starts opening fire. This is apparently the man called the Whisper, who is why Rose Tyler's there. Apparently the Whisper showed up, and the doctor wants to know who he is. The fighting ensues, a lot of people die. Rose Tyler barely escapes with her life, and meets up with Jack Harkness, who's working as a reporter for a mild-mannered newspaper. They're quickly found by the police and brought in. The commissioner, James... What was his name? Anybody have his
Anybody?
name? I had it up on a list, and we started talking about the Big Finish ones, and I moved away from it.
Bill?
Have we lost Bill?
Matt?
I had actually stepped out for a minute expecting the summary to go long enough for me to grab a cup of coffee.
Hold on. Do you remember the name of the commissioner?
It's McNan.
McNeil, I believe. 'Cause I
McNeil.
thought it was
It's
Neil.
McNeil.
Okay. So they're taken to McNeil, who noticed that Rose has no travel papers, no previous journal entries, after which he is corrected by a detective who turns out to be the doctor. The doctor, of course, is after the Whisper. And Rose is quickly brought out of police custody and immediately recaptured by her boss, who promotes her so he can keep an eye on her. Shortly thereafter, the doctor and Rose meet up and attempt to bring the Whisper out of hiding by faking a robbery. The Whisper instead chooses to attack a graffiti artist and kill him, meaning things have gotten serious. At the same time, Jack is approached at the local paper by a woman who's missing a friend of hers. Originally, he's not interested, but it turns out when Rose's boss is involved, he takes a notice. The doctor and Rose wind up on the big bad guy's radar, and a merry chase ensues through the skyline of New Vegas, during which the doctor receives a message from his later self, telling him that McNeil must live.
The 11th, to be precise.
Well, who else will be sending messages
I
in this particular arc?
The 10th.
I believe he was specifically named Bow-Tied Idiot, actually.
I bet he had that stupid fez on, too.
The Doctor replies with a unhappy, fantastic. They return to the police station where the Doctor builds a tracker to track an energy signature that had been seen by the Whisper. Meanwhile, Jack breaks into the Big Bad Wolf's office and discovers the fact that the friend that he'd been looking for had uncovered the fact that he had committed murder, and herself was captured and taken out to be spaced, essentially. The Doctor tracks the Whisper to a small apartment building, or apartment complex uptown, and discovers the fact that the apartment actually belongs to McNeil. Going in, it discovers that the Whisper is actually McNeil's daughter, the same woman who had been spaced. Jack was knocked unconscious in the Big Bad Wolf's office and it discovers the fact that the woman he had been working for was in fact working for the Big Bad Wolf, who wanted to get down to the bottom of why the Doctor, Rose, and Jack were there and poking their nose at things. He's taken to the weather control facility, where it discovers that the Big Bad Wolf has basically bought the facility and is going to use it to threaten the city, to capitulate to his demands, or he'll turn off the atmosphere. The daughter, who had been spaced, had basically died and taken over by a creature called the Space Marshal, has decided that everybody in the city must pay. So she too goes to the weather facility, and a big fight ensues, at which she is mortally wounded and manages to return to herself briefly before she dies. McNeil, witnessing all this, gets upset and chases down the Big Bad Wolf and winds up nearly pushing him over the edge of a pit into the roadway. The Doctor manages to stop him from doing so deliberately, but accidents does ensue and the wolf does fall to his death. McNeil, following that, turns himself in, and the Doctor, Rose, and Captain Jack go on their merry way. Okay, I can't do that much more. Alright. So that's the summary in a nutshell. I missed a few bits, I'm pretty sure, but close enough.
Mm-hmm.
You had to refer to him as the Big Bad Wolf, even though he was already working for Bad Wolf Corporation.
Yeah.
Or no, it wasn't Bad. It was like Bad Wolf something that was.
I couldn't remember his name. I know he spoke with that big frickin'.
It was serious.
So I have to wonder though. Does that mean he's funded by the Daleks, or is it just Rose having inserted the name? It can really go either way.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a overly blunt Bad Wolf reference.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've seen blunter.
The fact that the character himself is a big bad wolf. I mean, he is this oversized wolf alien who happens to be a mob boss. By the way, in an expensive suit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you're not seeing it now, watch the stream. Otherwise, I can share a picture of what I'm showing on the stream right now.
Oh, that would be good. I haven't been because
some of the extra cover art I see from fans is kind of interesting once in a while. So here's that.
Give me a moment here. It's loading. I usually keep an eye on this, but I have to live long. I have to wait long enough to get past the commercial.
Did they leave Rose off the cover, or am I blind?
I think that's
Probably-
technically supposed to be Rose, but I don't think it's the same actress,
I
though.
don't know. It's quite possible that they couldn't get her because I'm pretty sure they would have gotten Billie Piper to do the narration,
Mm-hmm.
but apparently she was not available for this, which is why they had to go with Nick Briggs. Because I noticed the next one has
fan art he's showing. I mean,
that's not even the same hair color.
Yeah.
And oh my God, the wolf they're showing actually looks like the big bad wolf from Into the Woods. It's not funny.
I was thinking of the Shistavanen from the Mos Eisley Cantina.
That is actually slightly scary.
So, what do you guys think of this story?
And yeah, if you look at the picture of the Whisperer on that same picture, that's very Rorschach.
Yes. With a hook shot.
Well, he was using a grapple gun in there.
Mm-hmm.
And is it me, or is that picture of Matt Smith with a fez taken from Day of the Doctor?
I don't know. It doesn't look like
Or does he do that every single time he puts on a fez
I
with
think
the
he
arms
does
out?
that.
The big silly
does that
grin. Of
same
course he
face.
does the big silly grin
I
every
think he does
time.
that every time he puts on a fez.
God.
Agreed.
The big silly grin, of course he does that every time
Oh,
he
for
puts on a fez.
God's
It's a fez.
sake.
For God's sake.
Oh, that is the okay. See, my screen wouldn't show me a small part of it, and I kept thinking that top image was a space station. So, like, what do you mean the Watcher is on there? Why can't I see him? Now I'm seeing it a little more closely, and I can actually see him.
It's the
Yeah, that's
Whisperer,
pretty
Bill,
much
not the
Rorschach.
not the Watcher. You're still
The
on
Whisperer,
you're still on the Anthony Stewart head conversation we had earlier. Now, man, it's gotten really big. Yeah, there we go. That's very Rorschach without the actual Rorschach blots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's Rorschach using Batman's MO. Except, of course, Rorschach's ability
Even
to
has
kill.
the same mannerisms as Rorschach.
To a degree.
Well, considering if this was a fan-made thing, it's quite possible that they actually used an image from Rorschach and photoshopped it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if that is a production photo or something from The Watchmen, and they re-edited it.
Yeah, that's probably why that's not Rose at the bottom there.
Mm-hmm.
Because that Captain Jack image, I think, is from Torchwood.
Yes, it is. That is definitely from Torchwood.
And it looks like Chris Eccleston's about to grab his junk.
Hey.
Now who's going dirty-minded around here?
I just noticed that as you pulled the picture down, right where his hand is. Either that or he's about to put a banana in Jack's pocket again and try to steal his gun.
That doesn't feel like a banana, Doctor. It's not.
Bad touch. Bad touch. That's
Remember, if it's ticklish, it's
good.
bad touch.
Brought to you by
Jack might
Bad
not.
Wolf Corporation.
Although Jack might not mind, but he would say it's not the time or the place.
Apparently not. By the way, am I the only one here thinking the guy that was doing the voice of McNeil was doing a better Jack Harkness than Nick Briggs?
I thought that that was
I could
that
see
was
that.
a terrible impression of Jack Harkness.
I don't think it was terrible, but I could tell he was having trouble with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, the fact that he was not... Like, the fact that John Barrowman has an American accent and Nick Briggs does not was clearly hurting him.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy that they got to do McNeil sounded very much like John Barrowman.
And he
No.
nailed that.
I'm trying to not visualize. I'm trying to come up with his voice in my head.
Because I would be listening to the line and I'm thinking it's Jack Harkness saying it, and then it's like, oh crap, no, that's the commissioner. Which I do love the fact
I can kind of see it now.
that they had the commissioner and they had to have his first name James. Because that's part of my problem why I don't think of him as McNeil is I keep thinking him as Commissioner Gordon.
I Actually, that was the mental image I had in my head of the commissioner.
Yeah, that was the mental image I had too. Is that it's what's his face from the Nolan movies?
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm able to remember it is because every time I hear that 11th Doctor segment, it sounds to me like he's saying Neil must live. So I'm thinking Neil, and then they say Mick, and I'm like, oh, it's Mick Neil. So that's the only reason I remember it.
No, it's because it's like the commissioner. You've got the commissioner, and then you've got your Batman, and then you've got Jack Harkness as a reporter, and I'm like, oh Jesus Christ!
This has got to be an homage.
This was so tongue-in-cheek to comics. It wasn't funny.
I'm trying to think who the Doctor is in that allegory.
Superman.
Nah, well, he comes in as an inspector for new Scotland Yard.
That made me smile. I'm not even gonna lie. That made me smile. There's something in the line delivery that the Ninth always had that always made me smile, even though I knew what he was saying was fucking stupid.
Yeah. Now Nick Briggs.
Nick Briggs did a great Christopher Eccleston.
Most of the time, there was a few times where it's like.
There were a few minor times. I didn't think any of them
where he didn't quite capture the nuances that would have been Eccleston. He didn't go. Eccleston would have brought his tone one way, and Nick Briggs did it another.
Yeah, there was like when he was like, "Look at this," and it was like he said it in a different way than I knew Eccleston would have. But other than
and it wasn't that. That was the fact he got happy Eccleston, the quote happy unquote Eccleston down pretty well. But serious Eccleston really, I think he could have used a little more work.
Well, I don't think he did. I don't think he did the angry Eccleston as well. I think serious he did fine, but the louder part of the serious.
Yeah, the outraged Eccleston. Was not there.
The Dalek Eccleston.
Mm-hmm. That was. There were some scenes that required that wasn't quite there. The morally outraged version. And then there was...
Which, to be fair, when given an Eccleston script, David Tennant didn't quite pull that off as well either.
Which one are you referring to?
That, the Idiot's Lantern, which is believed to have been written for Eccleston. And there are scenes there that Eccleston would have really nailed that Tennant, you could tell, was trying, but it wasn't a script for his Doctor as much.
Yeah, there were still... He did some wonderful stuff with that particular episode, too. Convincing the guy to sit and talk, I think, was something I thought that Tennant could do that Eccleston couldn't have. So... but regardless, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. It's still, the fact that it's... And Nick Briggs's Rose was hit or miss as well.
Yeah, those are just two voices he really couldn't quite nail.
It's understandable that he can't do Rose because he's a male voice and it's a female voice, but there's still character nuances you can imitate.
On all the parts that seemed like this is where you nail down whether or not it's the character, he seemed to succeed, whereas some of the more minor lines that weren't quite pivotal.
It was with Rose, it was scene to scene. It was like he could get one attitude down, but not another attitude. And it wasn't just the minor attitudes. I was, you give Nick Briggs a chance to do the voice of something, he can do it well. If you give him, he's not a good impersonator.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact that he was doing he had 4 voices that he had to frequently switch between, maybe more. No, 5, I think. That he had to frequently switch between, and knowing him, he did it all in one take as often as he could. So I can see that throwing him off as well.
Well, because all the other voices he did were great.
Right.
And he switched between accent stuff, and it's not like he hasn't done that before. I mean, he did the Daleks and the Cybermen for the end of Series 2.
But I mean, assuming he did each scene in one take as he is known to do, I can see where that would have, the quantity of voices would have eventually started to affect the quality.
Mm-hmm.
He did that in one take?
He does a lot of
Well,
stuff in one take.
like when he did the Cybermen and the Daleks arguing with each other, all he did was keep changing the setting on his ring modulator. He didn't.
Oh,
he
this
didn't,
guy's got major talent then.
That's actually not unusual for good voice actors. If you look at James Doohan, for Star Trek, the original series, almost every time an alien came up in Star Trek, it was James Doohan's voice. And that included...
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, James Doohan. Any time you had the disembodied alien voice, it was James Doohan. He provided a lot of voices on that, and he occasionally had to have them where they were arguing with themselves. And he was able to do that fairly well. And if I recall correctly, he did it in one take. So, being an impersonator, you actually do have the ability to switch between voices like that fairly well. Again, I would point you at the Star Wars radio play that was done at the Seattle Comic-Con a couple of years ago. And you've got some of the most talented voice actors on the planet. Maurice LaMarche, Billy West, what's his face, the voice of Bender, all doing various characters while doing the scenes from the original episode 4, Star Wars, as
But I don't
narrated
think
by
any of them
Kevin
were
Conroy.
responding to themselves.
Yes, there was at least one scene where it was one guy that had to do 2 roles.
Mm-hmm.
And he managed to pull it off very well. I think it might have been Billy West. And he was able to transition well. So it was either Billy West or Maurice LaMarche. I can't remember which.
One of them, yeah.
And I can't even consistently do my voice.
Yeah, but that is the hallmark of a good voice actor, is when you can actually do 2 voices like that in one take without problems. And yes, Nick Briggs was doing 4, and that means he was probably he was probably doing it one take. It means he was very talented. I bet he had a glass of water there.
Yeah.
He probably didn't do all of it in one take, but he would do all the voices for a scene, pause, take a glass of water, do the next scene, you know?
I think there were scenes where there was all 3 main cast members plus the villain plus that girl, that woman that was working for the villain, all in one scene together.
Really, I think this production would come off better if they always made sure they had one male, one female doing the narration bits, and just have the...
I kind of think this was written for Billy Piper. Like, that's why they had a male voice come into... Like, they normally do have an opposite gender person, whereas here they had 2 males. It didn't work quite as well. I have a feeling it was written for Billy and they couldn't get her.
I think so, probably because she was busy doing the 50th anniversary special.
Probably that, and maybe something else that came up, too.
I don't know. What else is she doing recently?
She usually does TV shows. I don't know which ones, though, she's doing anymore.
She's in TV shows still?
Oh, yeah.
I know she was in The Girlfriend Experience.
Google.
Didn't she have a baby?
Billy.
She might have.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that.
Like, I remember seeing photos of her pregnant, and that wasn't too
La 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 la.
Okay,
la, la,
2011, she has no longer doing Secret Diary of a Call Girl.
Aww.
2012, True Love TV series. 2013, Doctor Who again.
I don't know why I come here. You
2014, Penny Dreadful.
Okay, so it's okay.
And 2014, Foxtrot TV movie.
Okay, so she's currently doing something for Penny Dreadful. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
But yeah, she's still doing stuff.
Oh, her son was okay. Her second son was born in April 2012. Oh, she had a child. Okay, I'm wondering if she had a child in October of 2008. That was right when they were trying to do that other spin-off starring Rose. I wonder if that is part of why they didn't do it. Because that was the 1 year that she didn't appear at all in Russell T Davies' tenure.
Because she
No,
was
2000.
Predators?
Actually, wait, no. 2008 is the one that she did appear, but only in. I keep mixing up which is which year. 2008 was season 4.
Yes. And she
Sean
was
one?
in there for season 4.
Yeah, she was there for several cameos and an episode.
Yep. 2005 was series 1, 2006 was series 2, 2007 was series 3,
So
2008 was series 4,
That must have been
2009 was the specials, and then series 5, 2010.
So that would have been filmed either right before she got pregnant or in the beginning of her pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if she was intended for a bigger role, though.
Maybe. Things happen, you know.
Mm-hmm. And no, I thought the Rose spinoff was axed early in production in 2007.
Yeah,
After
you're right.
after she left the series.
I didn't mix it. That year without it. Well, yeah, like the year without a season gap. With a gap, kind of affects me to the point that I keep mixing up which year is which, and also I keep adding the number of seasons to 2005 instead of counting 2005 as.
I think you keep
as
adding
one.
6 months instead of 6 weeks.
6 months. What?
Aliens in London. Doctor tells Rose she's been gone for 6 weeks. Turns out to be 6 months.
Oh. No, I thought he tells. I thought it was supposed to be 6 hours.
Or 6 hours, and it was 6 months.
Or yeah.
There were 6s in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's all I remember.
Here.
Anywho.
So on
Okay.
the subject of the episode here that we're talking about here,
Yeah.
what did you guys think of it overall?
I enjoyed it. This is a nice sit through last night.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't one of my all-time favorites, but I didn't dislike it either.
I alternately love and hate it.
Really?
Yes.
You hate it?
I alternately love and hate it.
Oh, okay. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it's almost like I want to start taking it apart scene by scene. There are scenes I think are great. The ending, where the Whisper dies, is probably one of the more dramatic scenes I've seen in this entire Destiny of the Doctor run.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is very reminiscent of many scenes in Doctor Who. It was absolutely perfect, and yet at the same time, some of the rest of the stuff going on is so incredibly ludicrous that it hurt.
Yeah, I do feel that for a short audio, at times it seemed to have a little too much going on to quite fit.
It's obviously, yes, that they pulled their tongue in cheek from comic books, and some of the characterizations were a bit comic booky. The first time I heard the Whisper grab a grapple line and go, my brain started singing the Shirley Walker Batman theme. And then shortly thereafter, we got Commissioner McNeil, and I listened to his description and going, "Oh my God, it's Gordon! It's Commissioner effing Gordon!"
Pretty much.
I'm like, this hurts. This really, really
Does
hurts.
that mean that they technically killed Batgirl again?
I was gonna say, I'm like, is this an alternate reality where if Barbara had not survived as Batgirl or had been too injured to become the Oracle?
And I'm like, and oh my God, the bad guy's a big bad wolf. Oh my God, it's a Batman villain. Ah!
Yeah, it wore that on its sleeve.
Yeah, it was very, very comic booky.
Every few minutes you had one of those things where it's just like, see guys, we're doing it like it's Batman.
And Briggs's horrific portrayal of Captain Jack did not help anything.
Yeah.
No.
Especially with the way Destiny of the Doctor has been, like every time you listen to this and you're like, oh, if only John Barrowman or Billy Piper had done this, but they're not. And every line you're kind of reminded of that.
Yeah, I really wish they could have gotten John Barrowman to do it. That would have actually been awesome.
That would have been
And
brilliant.
if they could have written it slightly so the focus was a little more on Captain Jack.
It wouldn't have taken much.
It wouldn't have taken much. It would have just been yeah. I would have thought that would have been fairly awesome, and Captain and John Barrowman could have done some of the other roles, and I bet he could pull off a fairly decent Eccleston if he tried.
Oh, I'm sure.
Or hand it over to Briggs, either way.
It's really a missed opportunity.
It
now,
is.
If this was a full cast, this would have...
If this was a full cast, it would have been great,
Epic.
and that moment at the end would have been absolutely epic.
Yes. I think that they really should think about trying to rewrite this particular story and do it better.
Do it as a 2-hour one, less standard big finish length. Get Chris Eccleston, which is dental work. And not if they can't get Nick Eccleston, get Briggs to sit down, rewatch the entire first series of Doctor Who so he can get the nuances of Eccleston's character down. Because he's not bad at Eccleston.
Yeah, he's not
and
bad.
then get
quite
Piper,
grasp it.
and then get Barrowman to redo the lines. To do their lines and do them properly, and even suggest changes that they think would be more in the vein of the character.
Yeah.
That sounds like an awesome idea.
Because I kind of feel that way about many of these, that these would have been a lot better as a full-on big finish production rather than a audio book narrated by one actor. Because especially like the Third Doctor one, where he couldn't land any of the voices.
If we had more people.
Oh yeah, they did not pick the right actor to get more than one voice for that.
Or even Babelsphere. I didn't think Babelsphere had a good voice actress for a lot of different characters.
Well,
yeah, and I would have loved to seen Tom Baker put his nuances on that one.
Oh yeah.
Nuances unknown to me.
Yeah, I saw an interview with Tom Baker recently, and he said he's asking how he feels about doing the Big Finish audio, and it's like, it's great. You know, it's like being the Doctor again back in the 70s, only I don't have to run around.
I know there are... I haven't read the articles, but I've seen headlines floating around of interviews with Baker saying that his time as the Doctor was the best time of his life.
Yes,
so
he said that.
I can see how going back to that would be a great, mood helper for him.
And he said, and that's pretty much true for many of the Doctors, that it is the best time of their lives.
I think one would disagree.
Yeah, the after party. No, one probably wouldn't either.
No, I mean one of the 13 would probably disagree with you. And not just because of what he had to wear, and not just because of how it ended.
No, he's quoted as saying that too.
He enjoyed his whole run, or
even with everything that was going on, he was still the Doctor, and that is a very special thing to be. He's been quoted as this.
Oh no, I mean definitely he definitely we know he loved being the Doctor, but I imagine there was so much crap being flung his way that eventually gets tired of blocking.
He never did. He
would do it backwards and forwards again just to be the Doctor.
When Colin Baker started as the Doctor, he was quoted as saying the fact that he was not ready to stop until he had outlasted Tom.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, I think
he was forced out of the position, which is probably the only sour note he had.
Tom might die first, so in that case,
he does still have a chance.
Tom.
This took a twist.
Yeah, Tom's health seems to go on and off. He did not look to be in the best of health.
Although that's in the 50s.
When he did the special.
Did they age him, or is that how he always looks?
I've seen him in interviews, and he looks a little better nowadays. So I'm not sure.
Looks about like that. He didn't seem that bad to me. I've seen him look worse. I have seen him look a lot worse.
Yeah, because the
I
point where
think
he
they
looks
aged him.
They might have aged him a little bit, maybe. Maybe it's the makeup they used on him or something, too.
maybe it's the makeup. No, he looks about the way he usually does, but his mannerisms seem to look like he was like he was in pain. Because especially when he looked away after talking for Dent, he was grimacing. And yeah, I've seen him in videos since then, and he's not doing that. I'm kind of wondering if he was just coming off a surgery or something.
Maybe.
Maybe
Um,
there was something.
Does he have
Maybe
some
there
illness?
could have been a bigger role for him there, too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well.
Does he have some major
'Cause,
illness?
like, yeah, like
Of course, he could have cancer, just like
Right.
every
Like,
other Doctor Who actor.
in the special, he kind of looked like he was a few steps away from being bedridden.
Yeah. And then I've seen him in interviews done on the 23rd, and he looked hunky dory.
Right.
He almost looked as good as he did back when he was still doing Doctor Who, just with white hair.
Hmm.
So I was just wondering if he was.
Yeah,
if
I'm
he
thinking
came
it's
off of
just...
something.
I don't know what it is, but it must be something up with how they filmed that or something, maybe.
Either that, or it's just that he has problems standing these days.
That's also quite
That's
possible.
possible. I mean, he's
All of the interviews I saw with him, he was sitting down. So
So you got to relax a little bit.
he's 76 now. Am I getting that right?
Tom is 79.
79.
Yeah, he's almost hitting 80, so yeah, standing for a long period of time might be a
He
bad
will be
Yeah,
80
you're right,
next
okay.
month.
That's right. I'm not sure where I got 76 then. Oh, I think I know why. I was mixing up some digits. But yeah, so he's a bit getting up there.
Mm-hmm.
Not too far up there to work, but definitely. I mean, even Christopher Lee is doing less and less physical stuff lately.
Oh yeah, Christopher Lee refused to go to New Zealand to do the Hobbit stuff. He's acting green screen in England so that he doesn't have to make the trip. And Christopher Lee is effing old.
Right.
He's in his 90s.
And he still rocks.
He's
Literally.
still a badass.
Mm-hmm.
For his 90th birthday, he recorded a freaking death metal album.
Oh, I'm
I'm
gonna
not
do
kidding.
that.
I have that on my iTunes.
Yeah, there's a video for it and everything on YouTube.
Yeah. He's
I'm
currently
so
91.
gonna do that. My grandkids are gonna hate me, and I'm gonna love it.
Mm.
When you're 90, recording death metal.
Yes.
Let's see, what was that? His 90th birthday. Announced the release of his new single, Let Legend Mark Me as King, from his upcoming album, Charlemagne, The Omens of Death. Which, yes,
Me to death.
it is a death metal album about the reign of Charlemagne.
It's an educated death metal track. Hot damn.
Yes, in that particular thing, Christopher Lee plays the older version of Charlemagne.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome.
So what you're saying is he's Charlemagne. What else has he played? He's like the new Liam Neeson.
He's Charlemagne, he played Dracula, he played Count Dooku.
Count Dooku. We won't talk about Count
He's
Dooku.
Saruman, of course.
He's Saruman, he played Willy Wonka's dad.
Fuck that movie.
Yeah, that movie. Bad.
That movie did blow, but hey, it had Christopher Lee in it, damn it.
It wasn't that particular fault. Yeah.
Yeah, it was by no means his fault on that one.
He played Scaramanga in The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh.
That's James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what you meant.
Um,
Hey, favorite James Bond?
he had been offered the role of Dr. No and turned it down.
What? That would have been awesome.
That would have been interesting.
That's my favorite James Bond movie.
He played Sherlock Holmes in a couple of movies in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
He played a Russian commandant in one of the Police Academy movies. He was one point considered for the role of Magneto in X-Men, but lost the role to Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen owns that role. I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah, I know, but still, you still have to think of what could have been.
That still would have been pretty badass, though, I gotta say.
Yeah, it did set up McKellen as his new rival. Well, actually, The Lord of the Rings set him up as his new rival.
Yeah.
He couldn't continue his rivalry with his old rival, Peter Cushing, and friend, by the way, because Cushing is dead.
Oh, let's see here. Wow, we got a filmography from him going back to 1948.
So, a tangent on top of this tangent. Who's y'all's favorite James Bond?
I'm not really partial to the
Sean
series
Connery.
myself.
Hell yeah.
Connery.
Shock it, Trebek.
Nah.
You know James Bond is actually a Time Lord, don't you?
Yes, I knew that.
Yep.
Everybody
So he
knows that.
I used to actually make that point to a friend of mine who was a huge James Bond fan and then just freak him out when I pointed the logical reasons why that works. He would just go absolutely nuts, and I would just sit there and I would do my best Connery going, "It's easy when you have 900 years experience."
He was also Frankenstein's creature in The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957.
Is Bill
Which
like
was
having an
Hammer horror.
aneurysm?
He was a big Hammer horror guy.
I imagine Bill's just having an aneurysm because all these tangents were on.
No,
He was also Karis / the Mummy in the 1959 Mummy movie from Hammer.
So, the point is, though, that Tom Baker's nowhere near as old as Christopher Lee, and Christopher Lee is still going strong.
In other words, quit being a bitch, Tom Baker.
No, it just means we still may see many more years with Tom Baker.
I am not the least popular person on this podcast.
Oh, well, that was a go from the start, Eli.
That's true.
You kind of stepped into the role of the antagonist and have been owning it since you started.
I'm here to cause anarchy.
The antagonist or the troll?
Mostly the troll.
Both.
Antagonist sounds cooler, though.
Played a character in Horror Express, 1973.
Matt's still going on about Christopher Lee, because we got, of course, on one of his favorite topics, which is horror movies. Unfortunately, this means that we have lost Matt for the rest of the podcast.
He was in Captain America 2, Death Too Soon. A made-for-TV movie.
We stepped into dangerous territory there.
You mean we lost Matt? That's terrible.
He was also Howling 2, that's right. I remember that review.
Matt!
God, that was glorious. Hey, Christopher Lee was awesome. Anyway.
Howling 2, the movie that he apologized for being in.
Yeah, but he was one of the best things about that movie. He exploded werewolves.
We have to wait until Christopher Lee actually has a role in Doctor Who to have this full conversation. It's only a matter of time since Ian McKellen has been here. I think he's holding out to be offered the role of the Master, though.
That would be awesome! I would give them all my money for that.
That would be an epic moment in Doctor Who history. I would love to have to be able to get Christopher Lee aside and just actually have him go, repeat this line, please. I am the Master, and you will obey me.
I just hand him the phone book and just be like, read this.
Because you realize he could do that a la Dracula.
Yes, I know!
Heck, hand him a children's book. There once lived 3 little bears.
I want to hear an audio series narrated by Christopher Lee. Big Finish, get on it.
Christopher Lee presents
Christopher Lee presents
Where the wild
Stand
things
Doctor.
are.
Oh!
Anyway, back to the podcast. Actual, proper, non-tangenty, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey. Okay.
I'll cover this later. You back over to
So-
the Destiny Doctor picture.
As I said, for me, it's kind of hit or miss on, where the plot goes. At some points, it seems really basic, and then at the end, it's very, very elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Refresh my memory what you're talking about. We've literally been tangenting about 30
Night of
minutes.
the Whisper.
Okay, got you.
The main topic of today that you're supposed to listen to.
We have been off at 30 minutes. I didn't know if he was still talking about a Christopher Lee movie or if he was talking about Night of the
No,
Whisper.
I am back to the podcast.
Okay, welcome back.
Jazz hands!
Now, the main portion of that 30 minutes was getting Matt off of the...
No, it wasn't. You guys were going on your own tangent.
I feel like Matt's going to make a separate podcast, him listing off Christopher Lee moments of awesomeness.
I've already tried making my own podcast. We can't seem to keep a third person around.
Hey, you got
Anyway.
me, buddy.
Anyway,
Sick.
yeah, I find the plot to be hit or miss. It's very basic, very comic booky in the beginning. Like I said, I heard Shirley Walker's Batman theme when he was using that, and then it's Commissioner Gordon. It felt very much like they had walked into a Frank Miller comic book.
And the Batman had gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Which
that's
is
by
kind of a
Miller.
Frank Miller comic book.
Yeah, that's exactly
Sure.
what Frank Miller does best.
Yeah.
Except that's not what he does with Batman, although he does write Batman as a complete total git.
Not as bad as he was in Darkest Night. No, Reborn. Reborn, not bad.
But, well, yeah, if it had been a Frank Miller comic book, we would have had the Joker being absolutely psychotically, yeah.
Yeah,
that
if
would've
this
been
was a
amazing.
Frank Miller, if this was a Frank Miller comic book, we'd have random shots of Rose stripping in front of a mirror, and
Oh!
I think Eli just boiled over again.
Now you see, I think he wants this.
I think I just gave Eli a nosebleed.
it's going all over the place, Bill.
But yeah,
Without will,
what
Matt.
I meant by a Frank Miller comic book is the fact that the New Vegas is very reminiscent of Sin City, as far as the way the city is.
Is it? By the way, I didn't hear if they. Is it New Vegas or is it New Vegas?
They just refer to it as New Vegas, which made me think of Fallout the second I started hearing it.
Randy,
Ah.
when I heard that at first, I had to stop myself and go, I didn't just start like a story made in the Fallout universe, did I? But you don't feel like it was better for being kind of comic booky, and I felt it was more endearing for it.
I don't know. A lot of the characters didn't seem as developed as they should have been, and that was my issue. It wasn't really until like the second half that characters actually got depth.
I can see that.
That was like
Yes, I guess
it was like you were dealing with archetypes rather
Also,
than
Well, you were introducing all the archetypes as the main thing, though, too.
Yeah.
And then
While
the
we're
latter
talking-
half you can
Sorry.
develop them and get them out there and do the final act.
While we're talking about the characters, I will say that to me, it felt like every character was a caricature of themselves in this story.
yeah, exactly.
Well, you're saying they tried too hard to be faithful to the era, and I can.
Yes.
In Jack, I definitely saw that because I mean,
Oh, Jack was a character.
I don't think they could go 5 minutes without a sex joke with him.
Yeah,
Or a gay joke.
I
and
didn't say
the
any
way
specifically gay jokes.
and
but-
with and it coming out of Nick Briggs's mouth and his horrible attempt to try to do Jack, just really made all those jokes fall flat.
Mm-hmm. So the major problem is that this is really a story that deserves a little more
A full
fleshing out,
cast.
and it also needs a full cast.
I
think so.
honestly think if it had a full cast, I would not like everything else would have just been smoothed over, and that would do everything for me.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I wish that they just went completely balls to the wall with it. If they were going to make this a caricatured kind of Batman.
You understand with Captain Jack that might be literal.
Shut up, Bill.
Heck, I wouldn't mind seeing this storyline expanded and actually done as a actual Doctor Who episode.
That would be a lot of fun. But
You would have to you would have to recast all the characters, of course.
Right. But for that to work, like I said, they would have to go. They can't just kind of tiptoe around it. They would have to go completely. Just this is a caricatured comic book version of our characters that we are doing.
Well,
for
no,
fun.
no, I'm not even talking about that. The main three characters, the Doctor, the male companion, the female companion, could all be themselves. But everything else would have to almost feel like the TARDIS somehow got materialized in a comic book.
That could be fun. I could deal with that.
And have little montages of different eras of Batman throughout.
Yes! And make little comic book strips for the transitioning scenes.
Or just like a comic book swipe.
I don't know. That's getting a little too much. It reminds me a little too much of what I didn't like about the Gunfighters.
Also Kick-Ass. It got old in Kick-Ass, too.
Well, I would
What was
say
that
do it like the
sentence?
Warriors. When you switch from a major group to a different major group, you do a quick swipe and it's just there. Not too big or noisy or anything.
No, but remember what I didn't like about the Gunfighters was that all their transitions was done with that freaking song.
Again, yeah, nothing that big. It'll be just a quick swipe like you're changing over to the next panel.
Even that, I think, would be a little too obvious for what Doctor Who normally does.
Yeah,
like if
I
it was
think
if it was like a comic about this, yes, but for an episode, I think that would be a little too explicit.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't like that, Bill?
I'm not saying I wouldn't like it, but I would have issues with that specific aspect of it.
Still, there's a variety of ways you can go about it. I'm just saying that that particular idea is one that came to mind.
I'm just kind of throwing ideas at the wall, yeah.
Like, the way I'm seeing the right way to do this would be kind of like a Torchwood episode, except instead of the Torchwood team, you have you have the Doctor and Rose.
Well, no, I'm not even thinking that. When I was mentioning redoing this, I was meaning redoing this in like the current or upcoming series. So it would be a Peter Capaldi Doctor episode, not a Christopher Eccleston.
So
He could be the Joker.
There is precedent for this before. The episode that we were touting so great, Dalek, is a virtual rewrite of a Big Finish audio called Jubilee.
I don't think Clara's snarky enough for an episode like this.
Again, rewrite it for that particular
No,
companion.
I'm just saying for the setting. I don't think she's snarky enough for the setting.
Why does she have to be snarky for the setting?
Would it have worked better with the Pawns?
No, I don't think so.
I'm asking Bill.
Amy could be Captain Jack, and Rory could be Rose. I could see that.
Bill, you're hired as a writer for Doctor Who.
Could see that. Oh, by the way, since I didn't mention this earlier, I kind of liked the Rose as a waitress thing with the kind of a callback to school reunion, even though in continuity it hadn't happened yet at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like
Although
it kind of shows this is what the Doctor keeps throwing her into.
Yeah, it especially makes certain things about her being a dinner lady. I'm so going to kill you.
It takes a chip. So, I guess
School
it's my
reunion,
time to rate this.
another great episode that we will have to review at some point in the future.
True.
Yes.
Well, we have plenty of time until August.
Yeah, that's true. We're gonna have a lot of time to fill. All right, yeah, I think it's about time we get to ratings. We've been at this for, like, God knows how long.
We've been at this since 3 o'clock.
His time.
Okay.
We started a little after 2 our time.
Yeah, we've been going for, like, half-hour overtime now. So, ratings.
About a 3. The plot was pretty good, but there's still some work that could have been done to make it better. Especially adding more voices and so forth.
All right, Bill?
I'm going to say most of these I've given a 4. I think there were 2 of them that I think I gave a 2. I'd have to really double check and write that down. I'm going to say I had a good time listening to it when I was actually paying attention to it as compared to the first time, which it was just kind of going in one ear and out the other. So I think I'm going to go with a 3.5. So not as good as the average Destiny of the Doctor story, but still an enjoyable story.
All right, Eli?
I'm going to give this one a 4. I know I've done that quite a bit, but I had a lot of fun with this. It didn't tip over into 5, though, because they seemed kind of to... Here's the main story, now here's a little comic book, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, now back to the story. It didn't knock it out of the park for me.
And I'm going to have to give this one a solid 3, as I think on Matt, because I alternately loved it or hated it.
So yes, 3, 3, 3.5, and 4.
Yeah.
So that gives us an average of 3.375. So slightly above average.
Just a little hair above average, and it could do really well if they retweak it slightly and bring it to another medium, or even bring it to a more regular Big Finish production.
Exactly.
This is of anything, I'd say this is the one where the medium really hurt it, because it would make a great comic, a great episode, a full cast audio drama, even if it had some tweaking, whereas as a straight audio book, seems to be the absolute worst medium for this particular story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even a novel probably could have gone, because then it would have been longer, so it would have been more in depth.
Yeah.
To some of the things.
Okay, and I guess with that, since we're also running over time, we should probably close it right here and now then.
Almost. We should tell people to tune in next week, as we will be doing the 10th Doctor of the Destiny of the Doctor episodes, Death's Deal. The one that Bill mistakenly thought we were on earlier.
And I think that's our first Catherine Tate review, isn't it?
Might be.
I think the first one that we actually focused on her, yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of interested to see how she does in this. I like her stint as a companion, so I'm kind of hoping for good here. And then the week after that will be the conclusion of the Destiny of the Doctor with the 11th Doctor's serial, which I haven't even gotten downloaded yet.
All right, everyone. Until next time.